Welcome to OverBoost 56. OverBoost is a podcast interview series featuring discussions with speedrunners about their history in speedrunning and gaming and the runs they're passionate about. I am your host, PMC Trilogy, and with me today is stylonide. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
I am delighted to have this opportunity to talk to you because we are, I always start this out with current events. And we are about a month away from Australian speedrunning marathon, right? Is that correct?
Yep, that's right. I think, 4 weeks to the day, just about. Yeah.
And so, the name of the event is obviously a little self-explanatory, but could you maybe give us an idea, not only to confirm what's obvious, but like, what's the scope of this event? This is an in-person event, right? Is it going to be in person?
Some COVID stuff pending, but It's intended to be in person.
Intended to be in person. There is nothing certain in a COVID world.
Pretty much, yeah.
How long? I'm just going to prompt you to talk about it. What the event is,
easy.
How long you've been involved, etc.
Yeah, so the Australian Speedruns Marathon, it usually takes place in Adelaide and Melbourne, twice yearly, COVID pending. But but it started as like a bit of a panel to talk about speedrunning in 2015. And I think 2016 onwards, that's when it sort of became a fully fledged speedrunning event. And that's it's very much grown over the years to be like the national Australian speedrunning event, like the premier one for people to attend and be a part of, because obviously Australians like to go to ESA and GDQ and like they're great experiences, but they're also very far away, so we're sort of isolated, but we have this really cool event to come around and be a part of together. I first started at PAX in 2017, which is sort of the second event of the year, and I've done I think every event since then up to now. So that's 2 per year after 2017, and it's just been a great experience. Lots of cool people in the community. So
have you mostly just stuck to doing runs and commentary, or have you been involved with organizational stuff at all?
Pretty much just runs and commentary. I think the closest I've done to organization, I wouldn't necessarily call it that, but I've done hosting at some events. But yeah, for the most part, I sort of really like the social aspect and just going and hanging out.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, that's the number one reason. Like I know people say this. If you've heard anyone talk about events like GDQ or ESA or any in-person speedrun event, those people will always say, like, you at home see the marathon, the broadcast marathon, but so much of it is about being able to socialize and meet people, which I definitely understand. I wanted to also get the sales pitch. Now, obviously, hopefully it'll be in person, hopefully. But regardless, it sounds like the event, there are plans for the event to go on one way or another. And so, I looked at the schedule and I was like, all right, what do we got here? What got you working on? One of the games you'll be doing is Jack 2, which we'll talk about. You had given me I always ask for videos from the guests to watch. You had given me a few. One of them was your Jack 2 PB. But there is another game on here, which you did not mention and is not on your SRC profile. And I feel like there's a story here. What is going on with Samurai Western?
Okay, so Samurai Western, there's going to be a little bit to unpack here. So going into this ASM, I wanted to do something other than my main speed game, which is Futurama. And because I'd done it at the past 2 events, I'd done Any Percent, I'd done All Nibblers, and ESA as well. I might be delving a bit far into Futurama here, but I'd done it a lot recently. And a game I've always wanted to learn is God Hand. I would love to be able to run God Hand. And unfortunately, I just didn't have the time with university and other things this year to sort of pull that off. And I thought, that's okay. But I wanted to find something else, something that filled that like action game niche. And I'd recently done Mechapone on my PS2. So I set up a very legitimate copy of Samurai Western. I have a legitimate copy now, but it had to come in the mail.
Of course.
But And I wanted to try it out, and so I burned a disc, tried it, and I thought, oh, this game is great. This is like a wacky cowboy beat 'em up kind of thing. This is right up my alley. I would love to just have an excuse to share this game with people via ASM. And so I took a look at the speedrun on the boards, which is actually done by, like, I think he's the top God Hand runner, or he's sort of the board manager, which is Xana G.
Yes, I'm familiar with Xana G because I'm a frequent viewer of some Yakuza speedrunner streams, and Xana G is also involved in Yakuza speedrunning.
Nice. I didn't actually know that. But that's awesome. Hell yeah. But yeah, I noticed he had a run on the boards, but it was only for any percent. And this was like a snap judgment thing. It's like, can I put a run together for this? So I kind of made up a category for Samurai Western. And I was like, okay, how quick can I learn this game if I put on a 100% file with like, because the game has like tons of items and tons of XP grinding. And I just thought, okay, let's just cut out the middleman here, download a save, throw it on the PS2, and just like see how quick I can go through the game with a quick look at the strats and how I do it. And then I just submitted that. So it's all main stages, new game plus is I think what I called it. So that's why I'm not on the boards. It's not actually a real category.
Right, there's not even a category for. I mean, there's like, folks, if you don't have the Samurai Western leaderboard in front of you, there is one category, normal any percent. My guess is that this is probably a situation where there is an easy mode, but Xana doesn't want to run easy mode. This has come up also in Yakuza. But of course, as you said, there's no other categories. So that's funny. But anyway, you know, but you did it, right? You have the run, and you'll be doing it then. That's funny.
So yeah. And yeah, it's a bit of fun. I get to just kind of bring on this wacky action game because I won't spoil too much about what I've customized in the game, but you can customize the character, and it's a Japanese beat 'em up with customization. You can make him look pretty wacky. So hopefully, if people, I think we have a donation incentive planned. I'm gonna plug that a month ahead. Vote for Runner's Mystery Choice. Trust me.
I see. I mean, again, I have the schedule up before me, and it says, bid war for outfit, and there are three options. There's cat, rabbit, both of which already sound pretty good, but then there's also Runner's Mystery Choice.
Yeah, it's I won't say what's on the character, but I'll say that the US version of the game. When you put items on your character, they give you like buffs, which is why you have incentive to do it. Aside from looking hilarious,
sure.
You have total control over like where the object sits on your character and how big it is. So like you can just freely move. So if you have like a cowboy hat, for instance, you can take that cowboy hat, make it absolutely gigantic, and just like hover it above his head, or like stack hats on him, and like all this silly stuff. So once I saw that, I was like, okay, I just need an excuse to put this in an event, make him look as stupid as possible, and just like play this for a bit and show it off. So
that does sound very good. Because I looked up the game too, and it's also, it's that like PS2 Atlas USA publication era, of things. So there's always lots of weird stuff going on there as well.
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked
actually
about Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's actually a Way of the Samurai spin-off, if I did my research right. Yeah,
I think that's right.
And Way of the Samurai it's got that wacky like element going on. So yeah.
Lots of like non-linear stuff too. But
yes.
That's cool. That's good. I'm glad I brought that up. Excellent. Well, now that we got that distraction out of the way, of course, the marathon, no doubt, will be very fun. Again, you mentioned it's going to start in exactly about 4 weeks from now. Is the channel for that? Yeah, just AUS Speedruns.
That's right, AusSpeedruns. Yeah.
Awesome.
I think it's a month and a few days. I leave in just over a month, hopefully.
Okay, but, hopefully, yeah.
I get there like 2 days early.
Man, it's funny too. I don't know if you have any hot takes you want to share, but I definitely feel like we're at a point. Certainly in the U.S., we've had a few regional events announced that they're going to happen in person. The one I'm thinking of, I forget. I think it's Midwest Speed Fest. That is like an association with a con. They're going to do something in August, and I feel like that's like the first. There we go. Okay, we got Dillingo chat confirming that they're going to do an in-person event with a con in August, and I hope it goes great. You know, like obviously, my concern is not come from a place of criticism. You know, unless it was readily apparent that it was risky, but like of course, you know, we want to go to in-person events again. So hopefully that goes well. Hopefully everything is great in with Australian speedrun marathon, and we'll take it from there. But let's go back in time. Let us get to the history, the origin story. Where does gaming start for you?
Ooh, okay. Pretty much as long as I can remember. So I'm the youngest of 3 siblings. I have 2 older sisters, and I think since I was like a toddler, we've had a PS1, and you know, it was like the family PS1. Like my dad he's not like huge into games, but he had like a racing game called Toka World Touring Cars. Really good cheat codes for a PS1 game, which is why I bring it up. So that was one. We had Frogger 2, Swampy's Revenge, and Barbie Race and Ride. So, and you know what? I don't remember much about that Barbie game, but I have nostalgic memories of just sitting there watching my sisters play it. So, you know what? It gets my thumbs up. But I think like that was always there. That was always a part of things. And then we had the family PC with like a couple DOS games. We had something called Battle Beast, which was I could never figure out. It's like a fighting game. I could never figure out how to transform into like the robot. But we had that, and we had like just assorted like Flash games and things here and there. And I think, like, as long as I can remember, I was just obsessed with the PS1. And, like, you know, you see an ad on TV for a game or something, I was all over that, really into it. And I think the thing that really kicked it off was we were in a department store, and I see this game on the shelf that really stands out to me. And, you know, like, my parents would buy us games now and again, but, you know, they wouldn't just buy everything you asked for. But yeah, I see this game called Crash Bandicoot, and I sort of hold it up, and I'm like, oh, can I get this? And I would have been like 3 or 4 years old. I was like tiny, but I saw it, and I was like, oh, can I get this? You know, this funny little orange rat on the cover is really speaking to me, Dad. And you know, they bought it, which was like, that was kind of a rare thing. So I was popping off. I remember to the day standing up. That is how excited kid me was to be playing this game on Insanity Beach, just like couldn't wait. So that was the PS1 was sort of the big start, and Rayman was another one, which I can't even remember how I figured out what Rayman was, but I think I saw a TV spot for like probably would have been Rayman 2 or Rayman Revolution, and from that point it was just Rayman in the house. So
okay, yeah. But like I have to ask, assuming it's Rayman 2 and not the original original Rayman, which is a scuffed game. Crash 1, like Rayman 2, not exactly. I feel like Crash 1 has this reputation. It's been years. This is funny. I've talked to a lot of Crash speedrunners, but like I've yet to actually play a Crash game for myself in a long time. But I played them as a kid. I played all 3 Crash games as a kid, and I distinctly recall feeling way more frustrated with Crash 1 than with the later 2. I thought the later 2 were much more accessible. That's what child me felt. I have no idea if I would come to the same conclusion now. Did you have any difficulty with that kind of stuff with Rayman or Crash? Like, were you the sort of person that could power through it as a kid, or?
Yes, but I would agree that Crash 1 is definitely the most challenging of the original 3. But yeah, I actually got a 100% save on Crash 1 as a child. I don't know how the hell I did that, but right. I think it was a collaborative effort. I think that was me and my sisters. I think we got through it together. But yeah, I was like just crazy about the PS1s. I was always on Crash 1. I remember, what level would it have been? My sister didn't like Slippery Climb, which was like a very iconic level to like get through. Like she loved it. She loved the aesthetic and she'd always play it, but like it's a tough level. There's a lot of cycles going on. So yeah, like that was always a level we would play, like tons. And she loved Road to Nowhere and the High Road, which are the 2 bridge levels. The bridge levels,
yeah. I was about to mention those, yeah.
So the hardest levels in Crash 1 were the ones we played the most because we just liked the atmosphere. I think my favorite as a kid, which is not my favorite anymore, I hate this level, was Sunset Vista and the Lost City, because I really liked the movie Atlantis, and for whatever reason, kid me just affiliated Atlantis with those levels. I guess they have like a similar vibe, but I hate those levels now. I think Sunset Vista is the worst level in Crash 1. But but yeah, no, we got through that. I did actually have Rayman 1. I got 1 and 2 at once.
Okay.
Rayman 1 kicked my ass.
Yo, Rayman 1
unashamedly admit that.
Oh my god, that game is brutal. That's like truly from a different era though, right? Like that's some 95 ass gaming.
Yeah. So yeah, that was very much brutal. I still think that game is pretty brutal.
Oh, it is. Absolutely. No, I recently watched someone try to play that for the first time like a few months back, and it was just awful. It was truly like with that like Amiga level difficulty that, that's like truly hard to know until you encounter it. I wanted to bring up too, because you're from, I always say access shapes taste, and I think this is really funny to talk to, especially when you're talking to someone who's in a different country. Did you ever have the experience, especially for something like PlayStation 1, a PlayStation 2? I feel like this is maybe less common now that you don't get games being published everywhere. Did you ever have situations where like you knew about a game, but you just couldn't get it because it was not coming to your local area?
Not so much with like distribution. Okay. But I definitely experienced that in terms of like not having consoles, because I grew up basically a generation behind. Okay. So while I had the PS1 as a kid, I didn't have a PS2 until 2010 or 2011. It took me a long time to get a PS2. And then after that, that's like when I enter high school and I start to like, do some summer jobs on the side. And then the number of consoles just goes up on the list like that over time. But but yeah, no, like it took ages. I mostly had handhelds and the PS1 and the PC. So that was kind of my territory. So yeah, I can't remember like as a kid sort of missing out on something because of distribution, but I definitely remember sort of like feeling like the kid peering in the window of the electronics store, seeing all my friends playing through Ratchet and Clank. I got to go over to their places and play it, but not in full. So like those games always blew me away as a kid because they just were out of reach.
Sure.
But, yeah, definitely in that respect.
You did basically segue for me though into one of my usual questions, which is, at some point when you keep gaming, you start to take ownership of the hobby. At some point, instead of just being something you get as a gift or you share with siblings, you kind of keep doing it yourself. You end up buying stuff. Can you remember maybe like a sort of milestone moment when you got a job and you're like, what's the first thing you got? Like you got that spending money. What's the first big hardware pickup?
First big hardware pickup for me, I had a summer job 2014, so that was the end of 11th grade, and summer for us is end of the year, so it's Christmas as well, which is like weird for Northern Hemisphere people to process. But yeah, so over that Christmas summer break, I worked in like a warehouse, and it was like packing. I don't know if you guys do this. When it's the beginning of a school year and you need to order all the books for like your kid and the stationery, and they come in like you like check off a list and it comes in like a big plastic thing with all the gear they need.
A bag? Or you mean like some kind of...
It was like... I say a weird plastic thing because like I was basically packing book packs. We call them book packs here.
Okay,
and it's
not
got
backpacks.
No, like it was in a just this clear plastic bag, and you'd get a heat press and you would heat seal the bags and send them off.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it's weird.
That's fair.
That's what I did for a summer. I was just in a warehouse doing that. It wasn't like amazing work, but so I did that and got a gaming PC because I was a big GTA kid. Still love GTA and Saints Row and all those. They're good fun. And I didn't have a PS3 or a 360, and I had been waiting to play GTA 5 since it was announced in 2011 because San Andreas was like my childhood GTA. That was like my favorite one. And seeing all that in HD, like Los Santos and everything, I was like, oh my God, I got to play this. So yeah, that was my big save up thing. I think the first, like, I got this myself. I bought this myself entirely on my own. No Christmas money, birthday money, nothing like that. So yeah, that was my big one, was buying the parts and building my own PC in late 2014, early 2015.
Okay. No, I definitely relate to that. Yeah. I think when I got my first job, which would have been the summer of 2003, I bought a laptop with that, for the purpose of having my own computer that I could, play games on. And so that was definitely, that was a good one. Also, I should mention that I later had a job at a year-round Christmas store for a period of time. So Christmas comes at all times of year when you're working at a year-round Christmas store. So that's a, maybe
I could imagine.
Yeah, I can I can really not, most people can't, but I can definitely feel that pain just a little bit. Now, so this is a speedrunner review podcast. We're going to be talking mostly about single-player games. However, I still like to check in on what might have been or are, some big multiplayer phases for you. And that can be anything. That can be, your couch co-op, your MMOs, your MOBAs, your other first-person shooters. What kind of multiplayer games you been into?
Ooh, quite a few. I think my first experience with multiplayer gaming, well, okay, probably the earliest one was like the obligatory Mario Kart or something,
sure,
or like Crash Bash. But the one that I really remember and really connected with,
all the Crash speedrunners in chat just like fall off their chair when you say Crash Bash.
I remember as a kid, I thought it was just cool because he had a pogo stick. That's such a 4-year-old thing. I was like, oh, Crash is on a pogo. That's so cool.
That's great.
That's the only thing I remember from being a kid. But so yeah, we had that. But the first game I really connected with was Star Wars Jedi Knight 3 Jedi Academy, which is based on the Quake 3 engine, and it's an amazing game. I don't talk about it often on my stream, but that's a very game that's close to my heart. I love the campaign, and I loved the multiplayer. That was my introduction to free-for-all, team deathmatch, capture the flag, all of those. And I was an idiot kid that didn't really know how to use server browsers, so a lot of the time it was me and the bots. But eventually I figured out the server browser, and immediately the game got much more challenging, but it was really fun. Really, really fun game. And that was one I really connected with. Later on, I don't have tons of hours in this game. I only have 150. It's like baby hours, but TF2, great time. That was one of the big things that got me onto Steam, was friends at school. In my first year of high school, all these people I knew were talking about Team Fortress 2, and I was like, what's Team Fortress 2? And then I realized it was by the Half-Life guys and the Portal guys, and I was like, oh, sweet. So I got my hands on the Orange Box. I think that was my first Steam game. And still got the physical copy up in a cupboard somewhere. But so I got into TF2, and then from there, just tons of random co-op games like Castle Crashers, Battle Block Theater. I saw Antero mention Speedrunners, which is a 2D side-scrolling racing game with grappling hooks and stuff. It's pretty fun. I haven't played it in a while though. I'd probably get my ass kicked now. But yeah, and then the last one I'd probably mention is that I've been really serious and committed to was probably Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5 multiplayer. I've just clocked too many hours across those two games. Just lots of fun messing around there. Yeah.
No, those are pretty cool multiplayers. It's I just want to say about TF2. TF2 is the dark game that lurks. I feel like a lot of people sleep on it, but so many people I've met through speedrunning, especially if you do anything with any kind of 3D action. There's just so many people who have had some time with TF2 in particular. With GTA 4 and 5, those are games I've played. I played more GTA 4 than I have 5. What kind of multiplayer stuff have you done? Because I feel like GTA 5 multiplayer is become this all-encompassing dark cloud that hangs over GTA. I'm assuming you're not GTA role playing. So are you just doing heists or what's going on?
Yeah, so I guess to touch on GTA 4, just messing around. That's just all my time in GTA 4 doing. Obviously started with the swing set glitch, driving around Liberty City,
of course,
listening to Liberty Rock Radio, Radio Broker, honestly, GTA 4's radio is all fantastic. And then we did the blender glitch for a while, which I don't know if you're familiar with the blender glitch, but when you have friendly fire off in GTA,
okay,
and you can hit, shoot at your friends and nothing happens. What that also means, if you're driving a helicopter and they jump into the blades, that's not going to kill them. So this sounds really morbid out of context, but
no, it's good.
What we would do, we would take people up to the Rotterdam Tower, which is the Empire State in GTA 4. I think it is, anyways. You'd go to the top of Rotterdam, and you'd get your Annihilator chopper down below, and you would jump into the blades, and because they're spinning really fast in I think it's a counterclockwise motion, if you jump into the right side, it just flings you across the map.
Good.
So we would just mess around with that, and we would just like make up little situations. I remember one time with a really good friend of mine in high school, we did the chicken shop takeover, which is we went into a Cluck and Bell and just like rammed a car in there and just had a police standoff. And then, you know, we just would escalate the drama. Like we got up to like 5 stars, and then like it became like, who will rule the chicken shop? And like we started like trying to threaten each other and be like, no, I will. And like I think I ended up like doing a really sick shot where I had the camera facing like away from me towards him, and I just went right mouse, left mouse, and my screen was centered on his head without me realizing. He just went down, and like we just all went like, oh no way. Like we were like 15, 16 at the time, so we were just like, that was the coolest thing ever to us. GTA 5, I mean, like GTA 5 was like a big deal to me because of San Andreas and like returning to that area. So I was just really keen, and because I'd seen like, because it came out late 2013 and it didn't come out till like mid 2015, I had a lot of time of like seeing people get to do all this stuff. So I think when I started, it was just like I wanted to do like the jobs and the heists, as you mentioned. So my thing with GTA Online, I think people bandwagon hating it maybe a little too hard. That's my little 2 cents. Yeah, fair. But I understand why people kind of don't care for the direction it goes. But I think the biggest problem with GTA Online is it's too easy to play as a single player game, because that's kind of how I play it. Is I just you know, I clear out the lobby and I just do the content that Rockstar puts out, which I really like. Like I like the new Cayo Perico heist. It's totally broken, completely broken, but I really like it because I've made like $20 million in that game just repeating the heist over and over, so it's great. But yeah, like I've just grinded that game to death, just like taking friends through heists and playing around and kind of trying to recreate that GTA 4 chaos.
All right, so we have an opportunity for me to indulge a curiosity of mine. I have not really played much GTA Online. I tried a little bit at when it launched on PC, didn't really follow through. I'm usually, you know, pretty mostly single player sort of guy. One of the games that I have done a speedrun of, and not many other people have, is the original PS2 launch title, Smuggler's Run. And my understanding is that at one point, they did Smuggler's Run branded content for a GTA Online update. Is that correct? Yeah. They did. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if it's connected in any way to the game or if it's just like coincidence. But yeah, it's like one of the money grinding methods where like you can it involves like, you know, getting into drug smuggling or like car theft or whatever, all the usual, you know, GTA dribs and drabs. But I think you like buy a hangar and then you fly stuff around the map. I don't think I ever bought one because I think I googled it and everyone's like, this is a waste of money, and I'm like, okay, I'll buy this when I have an excess of money. But but yeah, no, that is the thing they did. I think around 2018 it came out, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Smuggler's Run barely has a plot. It was really, the premise of the game is that it was a launch PS2 title, and it's kind of like super proto open world. Like, imagine if you just took like you know, like a section of the Badlands from San Andreas, right? And that was it. That's the map, you know? Like, and you just drive around from point A to point B, and that's, you know, that's Smuggler's Run, except, you know, uglier than San Andreas. Uglier than San Andreas. Imagine that.
Yeah, that's it. That's impressive. That's an achievement.
Well, you know, it's a launch game, all right. Although the sequel is kind of similar too, but maybe that's another story. All right, so anyway, we're moving forward in time. Obviously, we've gone into the 2010s a little bit, talking about GTA 5 Online, things like that. The most important fundamental speedrun interview question: when did you learn about speedrunning?
So I think when I first learned about speedrunning, it would have been, this will sound weird, I think it was through like something in a game or like Steam achievements or something. It might have been like Super Meat Boy. Okay. Because my first experience with time trials was Sonic Adventure, which is a game I run. I'll unpack that further probably when we get there. And I wasn't initially into time trials in that game as a kid. I was more about like exploring and like seeing these environments. So like putting me under a timer just made me like, man, don't do that. Yeah. I want to chill out. So that was like, it didn't interest me. But eventually I came back around to it, and when I started playing games like Super Meat Boy, and you know, those games are like just go from point A to B, get there, do it well, do it flawlessly, and like that really resonated with me. Like those kinds of like hardcore, okay, maybe not hardcore 2D platforms, because hardcore is probably like I want to be the guy or something, but you know, relatively hardcore. And so I think I found it through there, and I just got into the idea of like, how do I beat something really quickly? And it didn't have to be with glitches. It could be or couldn't be. And the term speedrun like either just entered my vernacular or I found it somewhere. And then I would just start Googling, I think this was around 2012, like, insert game speedrun. So like, I think one of the first ones I looked up was actually Metroid Zero Mission, which was like my Metroid game growing up. I was like, it was like the Game Boy game I had to have. I saw it in a magazine and I was just crazy about it. So I think I looked that up, and then from there, like, I think I found it was just like a VOD someone put up on YouTube. And then obviously that sort of put me in the algorithm for YouTube to be like, okay, we're going to feed this guy GDQ videos now. And then I just like binged GDQ stuff like through 2013 onwards. And that was like just a lot of fun, like watching all those VODs and sort of getting to know what those events were. And
so at that point, were you mostly consuming all of that through just YouTube, or did you get into Twitch like before or during that time?
So I actually knew about Twitch when it was Justin.tv. So that's going back to, I think, 2011, 2012. But I couldn't actually do anything on the site because I live in Australia. I had really bad internet, and for really bad, to quantify that, my download was 0.7 and my upload was barely 0.1. So I couldn't do anything. But, and there's a whole, I'm sure any Australian could tell you their beleaguered battles with the NBN network, but I'll save that. Basically, the government sucks at upgrading our infrastructure. I'll leave it at that. But, so I couldn't watch live streams. I could only watch VODs. And even then we only had like a data cap every month at this point. So I had to be very sparing, with my YouTube consumption. But yeah, it all had to be VODs, unfortunately. I couldn't really watch live until years later.
One of my favorite streamers to watch is Australian. And whenever his internet fails in chat, we spam this FFZ emote called Leave Straya.
Oh my god. Is this like a peep only? Oh, I love that. It looks like clip art.
It's really good. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, it's funny, like, in the US, it's like really patchwork where, like, if you happen to live in a good place, you'll have good internet, but, like, otherwise, like, you might as well be in the middle of nowhere. I'm somewhere where I'm fortunate enough to have access to fiber, but there are plenty of people. I'm sure you've seen plenty of American streamers curse Comcast or Frontier.
Is the big one.
Comcast is usually, Comcast is the worst. They're just garbage. But I actually was able to leave Comcast. Again, fortunate enough that Verizon, right? Like, I'm fortunate for Verizon. Like, what a terrible thing to have to say. Welcome to America. But that's life. Sometimes it's like that. But anyway. So going forward from there, you're consuming all the videos. You are on you're the Simpsons hell with the donuts, just GDQ VODs coming down at you. Yep. And at what point? Because you mentioned you already kind of knew about time trials, doing time trials. When do you start doing runs yourself?
So this is actually. I love getting this question, especially now that I can say it like somewhere other people can see it. My first run I ever did is a game I've actually never done real runs, like with a live split timer on a board. It was Metroid Zero Mission. Okay. And I sort of did it more as a challenge run than as a full game single segment run. And that was, I remember I wanted to play it again because I would always revisit it every few years. And, I just watched a video and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I started to learn about the term sequence break. That's what Metroid Zero Mission taught me, was sequence break. And I just thought, oh, that's so cool. Because when I was a kid, I'd always try to explore. And a friend of mine who also had the game, he knew about bomb jumping and wall jumping. So he taught me that, and I would teach him like all the map layouts. And I just watched a video because I had never played through the game on hard. I think when I was a kid, for whatever reason, I'm not proud of Kid Me for doing this. I don't know why he picked easy for Metroid. Because I didn't pick easy in like any other game, but he picked easy for Metroid. Don't know what I was doing. But so I had this file that was like mostly complete. And I was like, let's play through it on hard mode and let's do low percent. Let's try to get as few items as I possibly can and like make that into a really interesting playthrough. And that was over the course, I think, of the spring holiday, which over here is like a week or two holiday. And I was at the beach and I sort of remembered the route. I was up to Mother Brain, I think. And Mother Brain was a struggle for me back then on hard mode with like 5 rockets. But yeah, that was my first run. I think IGT, it was like an hour and a half or an hour 40 or something. RTA, it would have been like, it's split up against so many attempts, would have been ages. But
Sure.
That was my first run. And then from there, I sort of just did that challenge run and I was kind of happy. And then a friend of mine got a game called Ink, this little indie game. And that was when I was starting to get into speedrunning with Sonic Adventure as well. They kind of happened at the same time. And I think I did like 1 or 2 runs of Ink, which is this, it's a pretty clever concept. You're this little like cube, and when you jump, you spray out like rainbow colors everywhere and it reveals the stage. So like as you move, you kind of see where you're going. So obviously for speedrunners, it's like memorizing these layouts and doing them almost blind. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, and those were sort of the next 2 games. And then Sonic Adventure kind of goes on and on. That was like the initial rolling stone that kicked off, I feel.
Now with, so we mentioned a few games here. We mentioned Zero Mission, Ink, Sonic Adventure. With something like Zero Mission, were you playing that on hardware? Because that would have just been for you, right? You wouldn't have been capturing that, recording that. Yeah,
that's right. I did do it on my OG copy. I think I considered recording it, but I didn't know anything about like the name of the emulator escapes me. The one that is suggested for GBA running, I didn't know about that one. I only knew about like Visual Boy Advance, which was like that just got passed around in primary school on a USB stick with like a Pokemon Gold ROM.
Of course.
And that was how I got to know that. I think like tons of kids had Naruto ROMs on there as well. I didn't play those as much, but like they were there too. but yeah, so I did it on my GBA, just like made a little file and went through the game.
But now going from there, moving to things like Ink or Sonic Adventure, did you start to record or use splits or stuff like that?
I think with Ink, my friend was like a lot more keen and like more gung-ho about like, I'm going to submit to the boards and I'm going to do runs, and they kind of just wanted me to do it. I just wanted to race them basically and sort of see what times we could get. So that one was more chill. Sonic Adventure, because I couldn't, again, 0.1 upload is like the big thing here.
Yeah.
So like even YouTube videos took forever to upload.
It'll take a long time.
So so it was something I wanted to do with Sonic Adventure and eventually did do, but initially it was just kind of like, okay, I learned Sonic's story and it would just be like a way to kill time in a class in high school that I didn't really care for. It was very easy to get good grades and it was like I went to like a Christian private school, so they had the obligatory religion class, which was like it didn't count towards your like final placement grade leaving school. It was just kind of there because like it's in the curriculum. So everyone played video games in this class, and I mean everyone. So that was kind of my thing, is I would just play through Sonic Adventure, which, to come to think of it, I would have been doing on a keyboard somehow, which I don't know how I did that. But yeah, so that was kind of Sonic Adventure, but I had that goal. I definitely had that goal of like, I want to time this and record it and upload it. And that would have been 2014. I started like to learn it, and I don't think I started to record until 2016 or 17 because it was just something I did on again, off again.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you. I hear you on multiple accounts there. I was a victim of Catholic schooling for much of my life until I went to university. So I definitely relate to the suffering of religion class.
It's boring as hell.
Yeah, there's nothing good ever happened there for sure. So anyway, going forward from there, you mentioned it took a while, and obviously there were several obstacles, as you mentioned, one of them being, of course, the dreadful upload speed. Was getting over that kind of the primary thing to finally getting to that point where you were uploading runs, or were there other obstacles besides that?
It was mostly the internet, but I think the other thing was like, when you're from, at least to me, like from where I was, when I was on the outside looking in and I was just doing these little runs and like didn't have a stream going or anything, it definitely felt like, you know, you make it seem bigger than it is getting into speedrunning when you're on the outside. And so I was like, I don't know if I can devote to this. And it was just something I did, like whenever I was bored and wanted a game to play, I would go to Sonic Adventure. but sometimes it'd be like other games. But it was a hobby thing at first, and then the thing that broke the ice was actually my first ASM event in 2017. And that's kind of what got me realizing, like, oh, okay, this is like really accessible, really easy to get into. I was in Melbourne. I recorded a run there and PB'd. Like, very modest PB. I wasn't exactly a shit hot Sonic Story runner, but I got a PB and I was happy about it. And because I was at a place with decent internet, I sort of uploaded it there. And then obviously I did it at my first ASM event, and I think from there I was like, okay, I really want to be able to join in now and stream and upload and kind of get to know these people. And then, which was fortunate because early 2018 is when we finally got a speed upgrade. So that's kind of when things started to really get going again. So yeah.
No, it's a good point too. For if you're someone who's listening to this and you don't speedrun, like really the best thing you can do for yourself is just to do what interests you and not really worry about it. And that's true of any game. That could be the biggest, you want to play Mario 64. That's fine. If you want to speedrun a game that no one's done before, that's fine too. Like, chances are there might be people who know about it or interested about it or could still help you with live split. Like that happens. I'm one of the moderators for the Gundam speedrun Discord. And of course, there's like a billion Gundam games. And so sometimes someone shows up and they're like, hey, I want to run this Gundam game, but I've never speedrun before. And I always say, like, I can't tell you anything about that game because there's a million Gundam games, but I can help you with everything else, and I'm always happy to do that. So no, yeah, just follow your passion. I watched speedruns for like 4 years before I got into it myself. Like 2012, I started watching. It wasn't until 2016 where I was like, I can do a speedrun. It just it took way longer than it should have, and so I'm always happy to echo that kind of story where it's just like it was hard to get into it just because of the feeling of being on the outside. Well, now that we're here, we have answered the all-important question of what were some of your first speedruns? And obviously, there's, depending on, this is kind of like what's the real first speedrun, folks. Whatever your criteria is, I think we supply that answer. Depending on, does it have to be recorded? Yeah, does it? What could have just been local, never recorded, whatever. You got the answer. Let's do some individual takes on your speedrun repertoire. Of course, the next one is going to be, of all the speedruns you've done, what is your favorite?
Oh man, that's tough. That's really tough. Because, okay, I won't make this my final answer, but the obligatory, I've really enjoyed, like, pretty much everything I've run, with the exception of an American Tail. I did that as a meme. Bad game. But man, I think my favorite, obviously I've sunk a lot of hours into Futurama, and I'm very attached to that game, but I think the one that stands out to me the most right now is probably Ratchet and Clank All Gold Bolts. Don't have a time on the boards, but I'm working on getting back around to that to sort of beat a milestone. But I really love all the movement in Rack 1. It just kind of blows me away, like, how much you can do with Ratchet in that game. And I've been watching a lot more rack runs over the past couple of years, and it's just, really impressive game. Lots going on with the movement, and just every time I watch runs or play the game, I'm just like, you have that giddiness of like, oh, this is so fun. This trick is just awesome, and like everything kind of clicks. So I think Rack 1 AGB is up there.
Awesome.
And then I think that
right, and then some of the other ones you mentioned there, of course, and that you've put a lot of time into. We'll get into a little more. Let's confirm your least favorite American Tail.
I would say that's a safe one. Yeah, I think American Tail.
All right, we're not coming back to American Tail, so might as well ask how and why. What happened
American
to you?
Tail?
Yeah, why American Tail?
So a friend of mine, he watched Vinesource, and this was when I was like flirting with the idea of running a meme game, and my friend sends me this screenshot, and he's like, dude, there's an American Tail game that came out in 2007. It looks awful. Vinny's playing it. I think it was Vinny, one of the guys at Vinesource, was playing it on an emulator, which is important because the level they were playing wasn't a slideshow. And I was like, okay, how much is this game? So I Google it, I look it up on eBay, $4, right? So I'm just like, I have the hardware, I have the money, seal the deal. And because it didn't have a board. So I thought, okay, I'm just gonna play this meme game and just get a time, make a board, try to figure out strats. I didn't find any glitches. Maybe there's some. If you want to find them, go right ahead. You have my blessing. I have nothing to do with that game anymore. Guy who currently runs the board's really kind guy. He actually he split the categories on hardware and emulator, and he didn't have to do that. I don't think he had to for American Tail. So I still have a record in that game, which I don't know how I feel about that. But I don't really know if I like seeing first next to American Tail. But
same thing happened to me with Smuggler's Run, actually, where I ran that game. There was someone with like a clearly actually better run than my run on real hardware, but it was emulator. But then the moderator was like, no, we're going to subcategory this. And I'm like, I really don't deserve to have that. Please don't put this on me. I was really actually happy for this guy because he was really into grinding this game, and I'm like, you get that record, man, hell yeah. And then I'm just kind of still first, and I'm like, I really don't want to be affiliated with this, but yeah. So I thought, let's make a board, let's just have fun with it. And initially, there's a really funny thing here. I added like 23 ASM people as moderators as a meme, and I was like, okay guys, if you want to put a meme time on this board, go for it, but it has to be a really high time. You can't post a meme record. It's got to be like 420 hours or something. So that happened, and I would like to apologize to the speedrun.com moderating team. They thought my account had been compromised, and which, my bad, guys. I'm sorry. This was a joke gone too far. But they took me off moderation. They're like, yeah, we thought your account was compromised. We're just looking out for you. And I responded, and I'm like, you guys are doing like everything right. Thank you for doing this so well. I'm really sorry. It was a dumb joke. Sorry, guys. So that's kind of, and then for a long time, the board had like no mods and no activity. But yeah, so that was kind of that was just a meme, just a total meme the whole way through, and like it was fun for a bit, but I'm ready to just shelve American Tail forever and move on. In order to connect some long-running meme threads on this podcast, it is my unfortunate duty to announce that the current operator of the American Tail leaderboard is also the world record holder for Razor Racing. Which is a meme on my channel because I once challenged Tapioca to a Razor freestyle scooter blind race, and Tapioca became so enamored with the game that he ended up running it at AGDQ one year, and then later discovered the sequel Razor Racing, which of course also uses the Razor scooter. And apparently this is the same individual. So there's always speedrunning is a weirdly small world sometimes, is what I've discovered. The more I look at it, the more people I talk to, the weirder it gets. Oh, you know what? You might have okay. So we got another one of these individual game questions, but I think you might have already. Well, you sort of answered it. I don't know if this counts actually under the question. The question is, how about a game that you would like to speedrun, but you haven't gotten around to it yet, either for time or because it doesn't fit with what you're doing? Now, you mentioned Ratchet and Clank, although maybe it sounds like you have done runs of that. You just haven't posted.
I have.
So maybe if you have another answer, I don't know if you have one on hand.
I got 3, actually.
Oh, okay. All right.
I have a bucket list of games I want to get around to, and I usually don't like to reveal them too early, because then it's like, shit, I gotta commit. But the 3 I really would love to get around to in future, Sonic Heroes, which is just, that game's crazy. I would love to do a run of that at some point. Rayman 3, which is like a maybe. I'm not sure on Rayman 3, but that was like my favorite Rayman game as a kid. It's still my favorite. And the GameCube version has a lot of cool tricks that are just insane. And God Hand is my number 3.
Right.
I would love to do God Hand. Yeah.
I've heard a lot about that
those
game.
Are the 3.
One of my best buddies just can never shut up about God Hand. I don't know if he's still here. He's actually one of the channel moderators, but
actually there's a thread there, because I know that you're really keen on Mecha. A friend of mine is too. And my friend, I sort of got him into Devil May Cry, which I'm still really happy about. He's like in love with it now, and I'm like, yes. But I kept saying like, hey, you should try to get around to God Hand if you can. Like, it, you can run it on emulator pretty easily, etc., etc. And all he had to say was, he's like, yeah, I think the end theme is like a reference to a Mazinger OP or something. And I'm like, thank you, Brock. Very cool. Like, because I've watched a bit of Mecha, but he's like really, really gung ho and really into it, always trying to get me into it. I'm just like, it's cool, man. Like, not entirely my bag, but I get why you like it. And he's just like, yeah, every time Godhand comes up, he loves that piece of trivia of like, oh, the end credit sounds like this anime OP from the 70s. And I'm like, that's awesome, man. Like,
now I have to look it up because, like, I don't know if you've noticed this before. I know we follow each other, but of course I'm often plugging the anime podcast that I do, the specifically Mecha Anime podcast. We haven't watched Mazinger, but that could happen at some point. So maybe that'll come up then. I'll have to keep that trivia in my back pocket now.
I think it was Mazinger. If he ends up watching this, he might just message me later and be like, "Bro, it wasn't Mazinger. You weren't listening." But I think it was Mazinger.
Yeah, I mean, Mazinger's a 70s show, so that correlates. That certainly seems to be the case. How about a favorite speedrun to watch that you have no plans to run yourself?
This is obviously Australian community, pretty tight-knit place. Simpsons Hit and Run. I watch my buddy Liquid do runs of that. That's a game I get asked to do that a lot. I had a point. There was a point in time when Futurama kicked off where I was like, okay, maybe I'll gear up to do cartoon speedruns.
Yeah,
didn't really pan out, and I was like, okay, I just need to do what I want here. But Shah was being considered. I think it's an awesome speedrun. Obviously, like myself, like countless others, played it as a kid, loved it as a kid. I still have my PC copy on the shelf there. So that's always really nice to sort of kick back and chill with. What else? I'm trying to think of other games I watch. Tomba is another one by my buddy Raiku. He's got record in all events in that game, and I think any percent, I could be wrong, but definitely all events he's conquered. And he's just like, there's a PAX run he did of that where I just couched with him because Raiku and I are good pals, and there's a bar really close to the PAX Center. And this is, like, important in relation to a Scooby-Doo run I did one year. But, oh, sorry, one moment. Sorry, my mom was just heading out, wanted to clue me in on what was going on.
That is not the most embarrassing interruption we've ever had on this podcast. Was the time that my wife started butt dialing into chat and just like, and I thought she fell asleep on her phone, but turns out it was actually just her rolling around on her phone while brushing her dog. So you're still safe. You're not I've done
I'm good.
worse.
I kept it low key. But so where was? Oh yeah. So the thing I remember about Tomba is I don't really have a clue about how all events works, but I just couched with him. And there's a place called the General Assembly near the Melbourne Convention Centre. We might have enjoyed some drinks, some beverages, and this was in the morning. that's the convention. That's the speedrun marathon life.
The morning drinking at cons. Good.
Yeah, the morning after drink to kind of keep you rolling. The Archer method of always drink and you'll never be hungover.
Once more into the brunch.
Yeah, and I like that, actually. That's pretty good. So we had been there, and I'm just sitting down for Tomba, and I'm just like, this game rules, man. This is great. Like, I have no friggin' idea what's going on. So like the commentary is like really scuffed. We're just sitting there like chilling, and I think even he was having trouble explaining what was going on in the game because Tomba's a weird game.
Oh yeah,
it's a weird game. Like,
it is a wild vibe.
Of everything you're doing. Yeah. So like Raiku's like, he sounds confused about what's going on himself, about like, so there are these like evil pigs, and now we're in a gnome village, and like, he didn't sound sure of what was going on, so it's really funny. But that's kind of my little experience with Tomba. No plans to run it. Good. But it's fun to watch.
That's the appropriate Tomba experience. That definitely sounds right to me. I appreciate that a lot. All right, I think I wanted to check in. I already kind of asked about, I had that earlier question about access for distribution in games. The other thing I wanted to ask about is, some of the games we're going to be talking about are games that are on, I want to say retro hardware, on the basis that things that are pre-HDMI are retro. That's where I'm going to draw the line for right now.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
And so that brings up several issues because, especially being in Australia, you're dealing with, region locked consoles, different hardware. You've already mentioned. I actually, no way. I think it might have been in a video I was watching in Nevada. You brought up differences between NTSC only tricks. Like I think you were describing an NTSC only trick in like Futurama or something. And so
there's one, by the way, and it's very silly.
Yes,
but yes,
yeah.
yes.
And so I wanted to ask, like, what's your situation with consoles, especially for speedrunning? Have you been collecting NTSC consoles? Like, what's going on?
So, for a period of time, I did have NTSC consoles. So, like, if I like look over here, I have a JN64, but with the tabs like clipped, so that just accepts anything. Yeah. And that's just got an EverDrive in it pretty much at all times.
Yep.
I got a Super Famicom. Same deal. EverDrive just kind of lives in that thing. And then going beyond that to consoles I've actually run games on, I had a PAL PS2 90K, which I still use, and that's there's been a recent hardware exploit called Mechapone, which kind of removes regions from it. So because of that, I was able to get rid of my NTSC's 70K. I still need to mail that one off. If Donoz is watching, I'm really sorry I haven't mailed out your PS2 yet. Uni hit me like a truck, and I'm just kind of waiting for the right moment now to go out and do it. But so I'm going to mail that out to him, and I mailed out my Japanese 79K, I think, to Scott Obozo. He's a Rack 2 runner, and he also does Tetris and Fall Guys. It's pretty cool. So I kind of helped him out because his PS2 died on him, and I'm like, hey man, if you pay postage, it's yours. So I just sent that off. So I used to have like I called it the Tower of Babel. It was like 3 PS2s just sitting on each other.
I actually literally have that. I have two 250Ks and a 90K like right at my feet. So yes, I'm right there with you.
Nice. So that's been good to kind of cut down on that, get some space on the desk. And then I had an NTSC Xbox. I can't remember why I traded it in. Oh, I know why I traded it in for a PAL one. So I'm going to just bitch about the Xbox for a second.
Please,
here. So,
do it.
One, it's big. Let's just get that out of the way. But two, the Xbox isn't dual voltage. So, like, if I have a PS2 from America and an Australian power supply, obviously things in Australia are higher. I think it's a higher voltage.
I think that's right.
So, and what that means is because it's got that power brick and because it converts the voltage in the PS2, I can just plug it into an Australian power supply. It's not going to fry it. Xbox, on the other hand, if you do that, it's gonna blow.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's gonna blow anyway. Like that was the Xbox. I mean, for folks who aren't familiar with the original Xbox, one of the substantial problems with that system is that there was some kind of power problem. I forget exactly what it was, but the solution is what I remember. The solution was, I had an NTSC Xbox as a kid in America, and the solution was that they mailed you a special power cord that, if it detected the problem, would just shut off. So that way they had avoided the liability, right? Because the liability was the thing would catch on fire and burn everything down. And so they fixed that problem. They didn't fix the Xbox, but they at least, I guess, avoided the fire liability.
I think they did fix the Xbox, but it was like the last revision. So the Xbox has really shitty capacitors, particularly the clock capacitor, and that thing can rupture and leak acid onto the motherboards. That's just wonderful. And yeah, so that's the thing. The thing that initially annoyed me about the Xbox before I knew about that was I had to have this huge step-down transformer to plug the console into, and that thing is like several kilograms heavy. Like it's a chunky thing. So I wanted to get rid of that. So I bought a PAL Xbox, and I was like, okay, I don't even want money for this NTSC Xbox because it's such a situational thing to sell in Australia. It's like, I've soft-modded it, but people might want to be able to buy power games. They might not be aware of like how the soft-modded system works. And I'm like, this is too much trouble. So I hit up HS Blue. Shout outs to him. He's a jack runner, I know. And I was like, hey man, you want an Xbox? And he's like, yeah, I can play Futurama that way. And I'm like, fantastic. So I just packaged it up, sent it to him. He paid the postage. Done deal. And then I got a new one. But yeah, the Xbox, in terms of how it's organized when you take it apart, it's kind of cool. It's very easy to like disassemble, and I like that. What I don't like is that you have to disassemble the bloody thing because it's probably busted. And my PAL one, I had to solder traces on that thing with my dad. I had to like bypass traces because it was what was it doing? It was like automatically. It wasn't automatically shutting off. Was doing something annoying. I can't even remember what it is now. It's out of my head, but it was doing something bad, and I'm like, okay. this needs to be fixed. But yeah, an annoying piece of hardware. I really do wish that Futurama was optimal on anything else, but that's how it is. It's best on Xbox, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a few games I think I've heard of that are kind of like that. Especially the like platformers. Anything where like a little extra frame love will help you out. I'm trying to think of maybe it was Twin Sanity. I think I was talking to people about, and that's one. Yeah, there's some Xbox only tricks.
Yeah, I don't know if it's. I'm not too familiar with Twins, admittedly, but I know that Xbox is like considered optimal, but everyone runs on PS2 because it's just more accessible.
Getting an Xbox, it's just. I mean, I have a soft mod Xbox right over there. Again, because I love mecha stuff, and Xbox is a good console for mecha exclusives, Mecha Assault, and other games. But still a pain in the butt to deal with.
Yeah.
This actually gets into another question, though, and you kind of I don't have to ask if you do this because you've already confessed, because you mentioned EverDrive, you mentioned Mechapone, you mentioned soft modded Xbox. With the EverDrives, people don't really seem to bat an eye because I think it's generally considered you're not gaining any sort of mysterious RTA advantage through using EverDrives, right? I've never really, my understanding, I haven't actually speedrun in N64 or SNES or any other game, but my understanding is that people are okay with it. However, once you get over into the world of either optical drive emulators or PS2, Xbox, just straight up mods where you can play things off of hard drive, things are not quite so clear cut. And so I wanted to ask, if you have experience with this or if you have a take about as PS2s and Xboxes get older and fail more and more, it's going to be harder to have working ones. Does that mean we should just go, in PS2, go straight to emulation, or is there a room for soft-modded Xboxes and, PS2 using Open PS2 Loader, or also PS1 with, there are several optical drive emulators for PS1. Are you familiar with those at all? If I said X-Station to you, does that mean anything?
I do know X-Station. Okay. That's the one I've sort of seen on the internet lately.
So have you had any experience with, certainly PS2 modding has been around forever, so that's an easy one off a hard drive, but have you done it? And then also, how do you feel about it in speedrunning?
Yeah, so I think, initially, because as I mentioned, it took me a while to get around to sort of catching up with consoles when I was younger. I was very pro-emulation. Yeah. And this was before I knew about, hardware accuracy and all that stuff. This was just a purely casual perspective. I still advocate for good emulators and accurate emulation. BizHawk is the one I remember now. That's the GBA.
Yeah, BizHawk is a good gold standard one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if we can reach the goal of here is a piece of software that can actually one-to-one do the hardware environment, I think that's great. Not everything is there yet, so I wouldn't say, let's all use PCSX2, because that's not going to be a shit show. But if we reach a point where, I think emulators are retro gamers' secret best friend eventually.
Sure.
Because I know we still have running NESs and SNESs, but every piece of hardware has a death clock, and it gets to the point where people are making their own boards and stuff like that, and that's when it gets more and more niche. So I think if you can widen that niche and work on emulators, make them better, make them more accessible, I think go for it.
Yeah.
But currently it's a little more weird to navigate. And then there's stuff there's OPL on the PS2, which, that's a community by community basis. I can't speak for everyone.
Sure.
Coming from Futurama, though, which is an extraordinarily expensive game to get an NTSC copy of, and it's starting to climb even for PAL copies. We're just completely soft mod your Xbox. Don't feel like you got to pay some guy on eBay $500 to play this game. Please don't. And we're pro emulator for it. We don't know how accurate emulators are for Futurama, but we use in-game time. We don't know if it messes with it yet. But hey man, if you want to try it on an emulator and trial it and sort of see how it works, that's more valuable information for us, and we can at least figure out how to move forward. So I would say I'm in favor of it, but I understand a lot of the obstacles that are in the way. A lot of complications still.
I think one thing to point out there too is the most important thing I feel is, part of what you just said was promoting accessibility. Futurama, many PS2 games, is becoming a collector's item, and those things can be difficult. And the other part of it too is that we don't know. Like a lot of PS2 games are such weird creatures. The PS2 was a weird creature in that you don't know how PCSX2, like PCSX2 works. Is it the same timing as a lot of how it behave on the console? Usually no. Usually you're going to have faster loads because you're not dealing with a DVD drive. Like DVD drives, especially the PS2 DVD drive, is just not that fast. And so you're normally going to have often faster loads. If you're using OPL on a PS2, you're going to have real fast loads, similar to emulators, have been my experience. But again, that's not even true universally. It's you can always change it. Point is, always just say what you're using. Like my approach has been, I start out with OPL, I start out with, optical drive emulator, PS1, and then, if I'm really into it and it's affordable, I'll go the real hardware route. But I'm still going to put out first runs on that stuff, just to have that information be out in the world. And it sounds like, that's obviously, neither of us speak for all communities, and everything should be a community by community basis. Like that's, that's also the way to go about it. While we're in retro hardware money pit hell, I wanted to ask about another thing.
Oh boy.
Because I think you are the first guest I have had on who I think has since it came out, has a RetroTink 5X.
Yes, I do.
And so the reason I want to ask about it is because when you're playing consoles, especially PS2, Xbox, etc., you are now dealing not only, like, you need the issue of playing it, seeing it on a TV, which is its own nest of issues, and then also of capturing it and, and broadcasting it. And people have all sorts of approaches. What is your setup?
So my setup chain, pardon me. This is going to be funny because it's going to sound really high fidelity and then just drop off a cliff at one point. And I'm gonna get out the thing I have by my side because I can show this. So, I used to be on a CRT. My initial setup was CRT, cables out, GV USB, like the classic method, right?
Yes.
Like, and if you're someone who runs on a CRT, GV USB is like a wonderful device if you're using composite and S-video. Really good. But so that was initially it, and then I heard about the RetroTink 2X Pro. This would have been like about a year ago now. So I order it, and I'm really keen. But COVID's hitting, and I got it with USPS. So it took about 12 weeks to arrive. And out of nowhere, my CRT just blew. Wouldn't work anymore. It just wouldn't turn on. We thought it was a fuse. We replaced the fuse. It blew the fuse again. So I was just like, cool, I can't run for a few weeks. That was a dark little period. I was very upset.
Yeah.
So that was my first experience, RetroTink 2X. And that's when I had to change my setup because now it's like, okay, we're dealing with HDMI. So I had an Ava Media C875, I think it was. It's one of the Live Gamer portable models.
Yeah.
And I got that from JRP, one of the Australian runners. He does Metroid. Cool guy. Shout outs to JRP. That worked. It did the job. I could play my HD consoles, but like I don't know what it is with that thing specifically, but it would always like the audio would desync or something would go wrong and I'd have to mess with it. So that was my setup for a while. And then obviously I changed to the 5X Pro, which the 5X Pro is amazing. I can't speak enough for like just how good it is because it combines plug and play with technical options really well. Because I'm not the type of guy to hook up an OSSC and mess with timings to get it right. I'm just like, nah, man, I want to play the game.
Every time I've seen someone do that at an event, like I just feel so spooked by it. Like I've seen it several times now. There's a Crash Runner Stump who is like very, very technically minded, very good at this stuff. Like I think he's an engineer, and like every time I see him do it, I'm like, no, that's too spooky. I don't want that.
Yeah, like it's too much trouble for me. But I mean, shout out to the OSSC. I know you can get very good results.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I just don't have the patience. But that's my current setup chain looks like that. I have the Tink. For a while it was the 2X, now it's the 5X. Then that goes to an HDMI splitter, and then I have like a monitor here with direct feed. And then it goes into a replacement HDMI capture card, which is this.
Oh, there we go.
This is El Cheapo. And that's why I need the splitter, because as you can see, it only has input.
Yeah.
And this cheap, mass-manufactured piece of crap is the best capture card I've ever used. It has no audio delay issues. Not the best picture, I'll give you that. It has a little bit of color crushing and artifacting, not enough to bother me. So I've been using this for well over a year. And I mean, obviously exercise caution when you buy generic unbranded products, but this has done me very well. And it's really funny to be like, yeah, I got HD retrovision cables. I'm running them into a good little component switcher, good HDMI switcher, RetroTIC 5X, El Cheapo. Like, and that's the end result of the chain. So it looks wonderful on my screen in a direct feed. Stream just gets the El Cheapo vision.
You know, sometimes those things can work out. I think there's a YouTuber who does a lot of like OBS capture stuff, Epos Vox or whatever his name is. And,
that's how I found out about it.
Okay, well, I was about to say he did a review just on a device like that, and apparently you saw it too and got the device. So there we go. That's
yeah. I think it was Raikou. He's like, dude, there's this $20-$30 capture card right now, and he shows me the Epos Vox video, and obviously he cautiously recommended it, which I think was the right thing to do. Like, it's got its benefits, but it's not going to give you the greatest quality in the world. But it's got usability, and that was what I was looking for. And Raikou and I, we sort of, you know, we had the El Cheapo pact. We're like, okay, look, let's do an experiment. Let's drop $20 each. Let's buy one. Let's see how we feel. And I think Raikou actually uses it for his face cam, because he does like an actual. I think he does a GoPro into the El Cheapo. I just run my consoles into it because I'm just like, yep, let's go.
Let's go.
It works. Yep.
Awesome. No, that's good. I like that. I mean, I'll be honest here. Like, anyone here who's gotten really into converter stuff is going to yell at me, but like, I really like having my consoles just be able to connect to HDMI. And so at some point I just made the decision to go in on the cheapo HD pound cables, which I'm pretty sure are like a deep black cardinal sin, but like they all work for me. So like that's just how I've been doing it. And I because they're cheap, I can just buy one for each of my. I mean, I have one for PS2. I don't have one for each PS2. It looks great. I don't know. I think it looks fine. I'm really happy with it. I do all my, you know, look, I've been, you know, getting Armored Core records on all that stuff. All right. Latency doesn't exist. All right. Here's how I play all my games. All right. I got the emote here for, I'm a 3 FPS gamer. All right. That's my deal. All right, let's get talk about some specific games that you know that are around now. One of the ones I wanted to get into, well, of course, was Sonic Adventure, which you mentioned already was your first marathon run that you did at the the AusSpeedruns event in 2017, and I wanted to ask. Okay, I have to actually, now that we're here, you sent me these videos, and
yep.
I clicked on them, and I watched it. And said, "Hi, I'm Jovial Cereal Box."
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that was my old username.
So, what made you leave Jovial Cereal Box? Was that just too much to say, or was it just time to rebrand?
Times a bit of both.
Okay.
And I didn't actually come up with that username.
Okay.
My friend, this goes way back. This is gonna sound really. I'm gonna preface this story with this is you had to be there kind of story for this to like make any sense.
Yeah.
But my friend, the Mazinger OP guy, my buddy Brock, I met him in 8th grade, and like every school, at least our school, had like an email system where you could just like look up a friend's name and you could email them. And for whatever reason, there was this trend of like making, those really cringeworthy chainmail letters of like, share this email or the grudge girl will get you tonight. We would like make up fake ones that were mocking that trend and just kind of having a laugh about it with each other. And then, they'd send a sassy response. But because it's on the school network, you can't say like, I don't care about the grudge girl, you fucking moron. You couldn't say that.
Yeah,
so,
you wouldn't say that. Yeah,
you would get pulled up. So like everyone would make up these like weird. This is such a 2011 thing, but like they would make up random like nonsense insults. And my friend Brock responds with like, "You Jovial Cereal Box." I'm like, oh man, that's got a ring to it.
That's got a ring. Yeah, I'll go with it.
Yeah. So I pocketed it. I used it for a while, and then I think I shortened it to like Jovial Cereal, and then I just like didn't really care for the name anymore. I was just like, it doesn't feel me. I want to make a name that's all my own.
Yeah, that's fair.
So then 2019, I was actually considering switching, not quitting speedrunning, but kind of put it on the shelf for a while, and I wanted to do something like just streaming Devil May Cry a bunch, which I'm not super amazing at that game, but I really love all the like, the styles and the
style
combos.
Play.
So
Yeah.
So I made up the new name and went from there. But yeah.
So when we did the gaming history segment, you talked about how PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, like were some big bread and butter consoles for you growing up. Sonic Adventure, where does that come in? How did you? I assumed you played Sonic Adventure as a kid, or was that not the case? Okay.
Big childhood game. So in terms of consoles, like mostly a PlayStation PC household, but we had some Nintendo intersection.
Okay.
Our cousins had an N64, which they had like Banjo, Mario Kart 64, Diddy Kong Racing, and I think I already said Mario 64. They just had like the whole, the generic, like, these are good N64 games everyone recognizes kind of library. So I played those there, and then they would come over and they'd get to play like Crash, Spyro, Ape Escape. But Sonic Adventure is a funny one. So I loved Crash Bandicoot, and if it wasn't for my love of Crash Bandicoot, I wouldn't have gotten to know about Sonic, because my sister entered this competition. It was like a kids magazine where it's like, in 25 words or less, answer something about Dr. Cortex or something. I don't know. And she entered and she actually won. And she was trying to win me a Game Boy Advance Crash game. And she did this without me even knowing. This was really cool. I was really happy. And she won, but it was a PS2 copy of The Wrath of Cortex, which that was not the new Crash game, I think, because it's like a kids competition. It was probably out for a couple of years at this point. But to me, it was PS2 Crash. It was the next level.
Next thing, yeah.
And so I really wanted to play it. And I remember looking at the back of the box. I'm like, oh, you can play as Coco. Like, this looks so cool. I want to play this, but I don't have a PS2. And I was almost like, I think Kid Me was hoping maybe my parents can cave and buy a PS2, but they didn't. And I don't blame them. They were still pretty pricey. But, they could tell I was a little bummed out. So my dad's like, okay, I'll get you a new game. So he must have traded it in at a store or something, and he comes home with a PC copy of a game called Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut. Okay. And I was like, this looks cool, like, because it's a 3D game. They picked well, actually. And on a quick side note, when they bought me my Game Boy Advance for Christmas one year, they got me Ice Age, which average game, pretty forgettable. But the other game they got was Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, which that's a hell of a pick. That was my entry at turn-based. Yeah, great game. But so they picked well on occasion, and so they came home with that, and Sonic Adventure was like a big thing in my childhood. Just kind of first foray into Sonic. It had a bunch of the Game Gear games on there as well that you could unlock. So like I got to play like some of the 2D Sonics there, and then it just went on from there. Sonic Heroes, Mega Collection Plus, Riders, like all those games kind of entered the shelf at some point or another. So long time childhood game for me. Yeah.
Was there anything in particular about Sonic Adventure, besides it being a childhood favorite, that said like, this is one I got to pick up to do as a speedrun that would become your first marathon appearance? I
think the big thing, and this is kind of coming back to the time trials thing when I was a kid, because I loved the exploration, so I loved the hubs and I loved like the levels. But when I came back to it as a teenager, I had it on Steam, and I didn't really like the Steam version, which to quickly brush over that, it's not a very good port. It runs in like a letterboxed and pillarboxed window. It's unpleasant, but you can run a thing called Beta SADX, which I recommend for casual players. And that kind of made the game a lot nicer. And I just thought, okay, this is kind of the game as I remember it in 1080p widescreen. Let's just get all the achievements for fun. So I went through and 100% of the game. Incidentally, fishing is big. The A rank emblems for that, not very fun, but I did it. And the thing that really clicked with me was I realized, like, with sort of my more like older brain, I was noticing how absolutely busted some of the movement could be. Yeah. Like I figured out how to do Windy Valley as Tails without touching the ground, which is really easy, but like I figured that out and I was like, oh, that's cool. And like how Sonic Spin Dash in that game, you can like spam it and go really fast, and slopes are broken because you can just boost off of them and go crazy. And I just thought, okay, let's look up a run and see if I can learn this. And I think one weekend I think this was GDQ 2014. I think they've changed their username now, but at the time they were called Marsh Fighter Paladin.
Okay.
And he did a run of Sonic's story. And I think Amy's story as well, but my eyes were on Sonic's story. And yeah, and I just watched that and I was like, oh, cool. And then I looked up a tutorial, and I think it was G-Pro had a pretty good Sonic Story tutorial, so I just watched that and learned it in a weekend, and like, yeah, it just became a hobby speed game. And then what broke the ice, a friend of mine, Nace Pybus, he's run a couple games, Tony Hawk, Road Trip Adventure, a couple other ones. Cool guy, really cool guy.
What a cool guy. Can I just say Road Trip Adventure, a game I learned about like 2 interviews ago, is just like a hella cool game to watch. I interviewed Konasumi.
It's awesome.
What a cool game.
Yeah, Kona's a cool guy. Yeah. But yeah, so like, and Nace, I was going to Melbourne for other reasons to catch up with a friend, and I knew Nace outside of speedrunning, and I knew this other friend outside of speedrunning, and this one friend of mine wanted to go to PAX, and I'd only recently gotten a part-time job, and I'm like, oh, that's great, man. $200 ticket.
Have fun.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So that happened, and my friend Nace says, oh, Dan, have you heard of ASM? And I was like, oh, what's ASM? And it went on from there, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll just submit Sonic Adventure, see how I go. I have a modest time, but let's try it. And yeah, and I got accepted, and then that was kind of how that all went down. So big shout out to Nace. I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Nace telling me about that. So that was really cool.
Cool. No, it's honestly, I also love that too, when you're sort of able to enable people just by like letting them know about opportunities. That's always like really, really fun. And that's the other thing too, is like, if you do runs for an in-person event or any sort of online event, always just tell people about it. I mean, you don't have to be obnoxious about it, but like, you never know who's going to be like, oh man, I've been waiting for that opportunity, or that just it happens to work out for them. So that's that's neat that it worked out for you. All right, so let's talk about the big one. Let's talk about the one that you put a lot of time into. I have to ask, are you a Futurama fan? Did you watch Futurama?
Yeah, I might be a little bit of a fan.
Okay.
Just a little.
Just a little bit?
No, huge on the show. Absolutely massive Futurama fan. So yeah, I've been a fan of that since I was like 7. Mm-hmm. I think it was playing on TV one morning before school, and I caught the end of the episode, and it was Teenage Mutant Leela's Hurdles, which is the episode where they sort of, there's that fountain of youth and everyone gets younger. Mm-hmm. And I only caught the very end, and it was like, I don't want to give away the gag, but it ends with the Futurama bell chime, and it just caught my eye and it caught my ear. And I went into school that morning, and I was like, oh, I saw this thing on TV, but I don't know what it was. And I think one of my friends was like, oh, that was Futurama. I saw it in as well. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool, because I was a big like sci-fi future kind of aesthetic. I really liked that stuff. Mm-hmm. So I had to know more. And just from there, I would always try to catch it on TV, and then I got my hands on the seasons, and I was obsessed about the revival it got on Comedy Central, so I followed that over the years, and the game was always there. Like, it's crazy how few people know about the game, because it was advertised very poorly in America, and I think over here as well. It barely got any attention. Made by a little Swedish studio, like really modest little tie-in game. And but I always knew about it just through like obsessive Wikipedia and Google usage. And yeah, so a couple friends of mine had it, and I was like, oh, I want to play this game. I really want to play it. And I didn't get to play it until like 2010, 2011, when I got that PS2. I picked up a PS2 copy for $4. Incidentally, awful version of the game, but I was
the PAL one, the PAL PS2.
Specifically PS2, on original hardware. It just runs really badly. Mm-hmm. And it makes me wonder if that might have been why it was critically panned, but that's a whole nother matter. But yeah, so like, yeah, always sort of been there, and it's been really satisfying to kind of, like, I'm the Futurama guy now, and I couldn't be happier about that. I really like that. So yeah. So,
you love the series. You knew about the game because of that. You ended up picking up a copy of the game, or at least the PS2 copy, for real cheap. But now, you are the, I guess, somewhat at least the Futurama guy with a record on an NTSC Xbox version. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
So there's a bit of a journey there. What makes you pick up Futurama, right? Because like Sonic Adventure, you are not the first person that I've talked to about Sonic Adventure speedrunning, right? Like, lots of people have speedrun Sonic Adventure. Futurama, though, if I recall right, is a smaller leaderboard. Still a healthy number of people, more than most leaderboards that I'm on. But, a smaller leaderboard. Future people have run this game. How did you get into speedrunning it?
So it was kind of like when I was talking about like meme games, which I didn't know much about Futurama, and I thought this game's surely a little bit of a meme. It was when I was getting to run Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights, which is a huge in-joke with ASM of like, one day we'll run this at an event. And I was like, I'll do it. The VOD's not around for that anymore, and it's a shame because it's probably the funniest speedrun marathon run I've ever done. It's also extremely scuffed, but it's lost to time, sadly.
You're like the fourth. You know, speaking of other games that a ton of people have run, you're like the fourth person I've had on this podcast to talk about Night of 100 Frights. But continue with Futurama, please.
It's kind of a banger game, by the way.
It seems great, yeah.
Yeah, and it was always sort of lurking in the back of my mind of like, okay, Futurama, and I was Googling it, I was looking it up, and this was probably going back to 2017 or 18, and I saw that it was viable on Xbox, and I thought, okay, well, at the time, I didn't really have the just disposable income, and I was like, okay, well, what about PS2? And it was just something that was always on the back burner. And I remember seeing there was a really bad piece of misinformation somewhere. Someone in a YouTube comment section was like, oh yeah, you can't skip any of the cutscenes in the game, you have to watch all of them. And that initially turned me away. I was like, oh, that would really suck for a marathon run, like, because you know, it would be fun to watch the cutscenes, but it would really break it up and it would get boring. Or alternatively, you'd have to play through the whole game in practice, then go live. That's wrong, by the way. It's only the first 2 cutscenes you have to watch, then you can skip them, and it's from boot. And there's also an FMV skip cheat code, which is completely speedrun legal because FMVs don't affect your time.
Yeah, makes perfect sense to allow that, yeah.
So that was a complete piece of misinformation. I don't know where that person got their info from. I'm sure they didn't mean anything ill by it, but don't listen to that. Official source. No, don't have to worry about cutscenes. So that happened, and the Xbox kind of enters the scene when I go to America to visit some friends, because before I got into speedrunning, I was like really into like the animation community, which is like whole different like area. But I knew a lot of friends there, and I really wanted to go over and meet them. And when I was there in California, they took me to this awesome retro gaming place in... I've forgotten the name of the town, but it's called Lost Levels.
Okay.
And they're like an arcade retro game store. The name went through my head and it's gone again, damn it. But anyways, so I went there and I really wanted to play Jet Set Radio Future, which is like, at the time, it was notoriously hard to emulate. And I was just like, okay, I'm gonna get an Xbox, I'm gonna ship it home, and I'm gonna get Jet Set Radio Future. Why not? I'll treat myself. And so that was why I had the Xbox initially. And then I got back and I was like, okay, well, why not try to do this Futurama thing? And I got a PAL copy at first before I soft-modded my Xbox, started running on 360 and just like dove into the game and went on from there. And the community was really supportive. Big shout out to Joe, Toxic Pinhead. I see Mifa in chat. Mifa mostly does like Family Guy, but they're sort of, it used to be a big cartoon meme game, so everyone in there was like really supportive. So that kind of helped push me along. So yeah.
No, that's neat. Also, I checked it, and it's apparently there are 2 lost levels. There's one location in Claremont and one location in Fullerton. So I don't know which one.
Fullerton.
Fullerton. Okay, that would have been the one.
Yep. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, you know what? The other thing I wanted to ask too, it's interesting to me. You know, when someone picks up a game, and then there's this, I find kind of like a Band-Aid you have to rip off in terms of playing that category, playing usually, let's say 80%, and then going beyond that. And often the case in you know, like 3D platforms especially, going beyond that is like some type of all collectibles category. Of course, Futurama, it is all nibblers. And it looks like you're the only person who have done this. Was this something where you ended up, you know, 'cause I know you were involved in pushing the time down for Futurama, you know, that you helped find some stuff. But you also then went ahead and said, let me rat this other category too.
Yes. Yeah. So I will say, I have to do the obligatory Toxic Pinhead mention. He is like the foundation of Futurama. Amazing just how much he finds. He's really skilled at sort of looking at a game with fresh eyes and finding new things. So a lot of credit goes to him for tricks. I found optimizations and stuff here and there. And yeah, all nibblers pretty much was me routing it. There were a couple tricks here and there from ILs and in the Discord that I put into the run. But yeah, I thought, okay, I'm getting a lot of fun out of this game and I'm getting like some decent attention. Why not do this category that no one's run? And yeah, it was actually it's a really cool category, really different from any percent. Like I don't know. I like it because it's less about fastest movement and more about knowing all the event triggers in the levels and sort of where they sit and like, okay, how do I avoid that? Or how do I trigger them at the right moment to be most beneficial to me and like avoid slowing me down and like getting into combat and stuff. So yeah, no, that was like a project I did like last year and I was like, yeah, no one's done this. Like, I might as well put something on there and like people have something to work with. So
yeah,
as right now, yeah.
It was striking to me watching the All Nibblers video because the like normally I think you would think collectibles are always just there, but the collectibles would often spawn like at certain points based on the triggers, as you know, as you were mentioning. And so that really created a sort of weird flavor to it that you had to, it wasn't just enough to go to those locations. Like you really had to be on top of the sequences.
Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting because like there's a lot of levels off the top of my head. I'm thinking of Right Wing where like I go out of bounds at the beginning because it's really fast to go out of bounds, but then I kind of have to backtrack a little bit, hit a trigger, then continue. And then of course, like the game had this huge revolution in tech, which was the redirect, which lets you just go wherever you want basically, and that kind of took All Nibblers from it's all right, it's a different flavor to like, okay, this is really fun now. So yeah, no, it's really fun category. All
right, I have a special Futurama set of questions for you. I want you to rank the main cast members.
All right,
both on how you like them in the show, but then also for playing the game for the speedrun.
Oh, okay. I'll do the game first.
Okay.
Because that's easy. I'd probably go reverse player order, so Leela, Bender, Fry.
Okay.
And pre-redirect, probably Bender, Leela, Fry. Okay. And that's not to say Fry's bad. It's just he's brutal. You know, he's a brutal way to start the game because you don't have as much movement tech, and you just need to be like really minding your ammo and your health. Not so much ammo nowadays in any percent. In All Nibblers, yes, but he's just brutal because he's just all about like just moving well, and there's no like room to breathe with tech. In the show, man, it's always shifting. It's always shifting and changing. But on a recent watch through, I've really been enjoying Zoidberg. I feel like there's a lot of Zoidberg love nowadays, which is cool to see. He's great. And then probably Bender after that. Bender's like the breakout character. Like he's just got so many fun moments and quotes. And then probably Fry, and that's probably like the main crew, I guess. Professor's fun too. Yeah.
No, the thing I always remember about Zoidberg, of course, was that I believe it is a plot point that Zoidberg and his race caused the anchovies to go extinct, if I remember right. Is that a plot point?
Yeah, I think I think it was like partially them. Yeah, like they were just hooked on the stuff.
Right. And so I relate to that. I love anchovies. So.
Futurama got me to try anchovies on pizza. I thought they were fine.
Yeah, they're just a little salty fish. That's really all it is. Yeah, it's not nothing particularly weird. But the other thing I wanted to ask about, you made a reference. I think it was maybe during the All Nibblers run to a bit of obsolete tech. But the idea of the obsolete tech was so funny to me that I have to confirm with you, because I do critical analysis, like podcasts about shows and stuff. And so we often joke about things like, if I said Bigger Luke theory, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know about Bigger Luke. I love Bigger Luke.
All right. So you may then realize that where I'm going is to ask you about, was Big Leela really a thing?
Yes, it is. It is genuinely a thing. So the game has numerous Easter eggs, and they're pretty cool. And that's probably the coolest one because it actually changes her functionality. If you punch a wall like 12 times in one level, it plays the Mario, like straight up the Mario like sound when you pick up a mushroom. She gets like bigger, like you've picked up a mushroom, but then she can also shoot fireballs. And before the redirect, where we could just skip over everything, that was really handy because it would just one-shot most skeletons.
Right.
And there's this really beefy enemy we had to take out. He's like a necromancer type. And we just would annihilate him with Big Leela, and it was really handy. But the catch was, man, Leela's busted. So, like, you can change her hitbox size by canceling her roll with a punch. And that was actually really important to Big Leela because otherwise, because she gets bigger, the fireballs would just hit her when she shot them. So you had to disjoint her hitbox to get it to work. But yeah, no, it's real. It's a real thing.
All right. No, that's good. I'm glad to confirm that Big Leela is real. I had to do that one before we moved on from Futurama. You know, a game I never heard of before. You had sent me the video for it, and apparently a good reason. 'Cause I looked up the history behind this game. Is this Spark the Electric Jester 2? And in particular, it seems like you kind of ended up doing your own category, because I looked at the leaderboard. I think you were the only person who had done this category. So what's your story with Spark 2?
Yeah, so Spark 2, I was aware of Spark 1 and I'd played a bit of it casually, and Spark 1 is kind of like Sonic meets Kirby, is kind of how I would describe it. And Spark 2, like, it's got Sonic Adventure just plastered all over it, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll mess with this. And people just found tech out the gate for the game, which is just really cool. Like, it's an awesome game tech-wise. You can go really fast. And I just decided to get into it, and that was kind of my main speed game for a while. But it was really high intensity. I kind of burned out on it. But yeah, Spark 2, I was in with the community pretty early and ran it for a bit. Not really involved anymore, but they're a good bunch of folks. They're all really passionate about the game. Just kind of went crazy on that game for a little while. My PAX run it's probably my least favorite run though, because I'm like, it's like in the morning. I'm not a morning person. I'm low energy. Run's not really. It's a very temperamental game. It's the kind of game where it's like you either get all the tricks and it's totally smooth, or you miss a trick and then like you're just sitting there for like an agonizing 20 seconds just correcting what you've done. So that was Spark 2, and then the history of. I can't even remember what that category was called that I sent you, but it was basically any percent. No, it was called like Jester Journey or something, or Stage Journey Plus. That's the one. Stage Journey Plus.
Stage Journey Plus.
So when you beat the game, you unlock journeys, and it's basically like game mode styles. And Stage Journey is you do every level, but none of the bosses. And I'm just going to say it now. I've played plenty of action games. Spark 2 is trying to be an action game with the bosses, and it fails miserably. The bosses are trash. But, you know, points for trying. You can very clearly see it's just tearing pages out of Metal Gear Rising's book aesthetically. It's really funny because it doesn't fit with the Sonic aesthetic at all. It's a really weird clash. But yeah, I was a big fan of just the levels. And I was just like, I want a category that lets me do that. And Stage Journey has one catch, which is you can't reset to checkpoint and you can't restart levels. And if you die, you're done. So... And Spark 2 being a temperamental game where all sorts of stuff can go really right or really wrong, I was like, no one's going to run Stage Journey in like one life. Or people might, but it's more of a challenge run thing.
Right.
So I was like, okay, let's just tweak some rules. Stage Journey Plus. There we go. Load a file. Just do the levels, off you go. And I only did one run because it was when I was starting to sort of feel like I was ready to kind of bounce from the game. But I'll get a run up, because I think this category has potential, and unfortunately no one's really messed with it. If there's any Spark 2 runners, like, please go and bop that time. That category can be minutes faster. Please go prove how slow my time is there. But yeah, like, that was a game I was really passionate about for a bit. It kind of scratched that Sonic Adventure itch, and really cool game, but it just wore me out, and I sort of just realized it was time for something new.
Yeah, I think the thing that I would say in response to hearing this is that a thing I encourage folks is that, like, if you have games that you love, come to understand what you like about them, and then look for indie games that do what those games do. I think this is a great example of that, and it's something I've tried to get better, because when you do find something that is, you know, like something you love, but with some satisfying twist on it. You know, even if it's not, even if it is flawed, and certainly it sounds like, you know, you mentioned there's some flaws, it's still going to be something that you're going to be able to connect to and articulate those flaws, rather than just like playing a genre you don't know and just feeling kind of annoyed by it or something, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, let's get all right. So we're good on time. I still do want to touch on Jak 2, because that's another one of those you know, those games that are, in my mind, you know, like that sort of that sixth generation of consoles, second coming of your big 3D platformers. Jak 2 is in my mind like that. I know Jak 2 plays with some more open world GTA elements in some of its installments. What's your story of Jak 2?
Yeah, so, like, obviously, like, talking about how I didn't have the PS2 for a long time, I finally got one. The Jak and Ratchet games were big on my radar of, like, I need my own copies of these. So I played through all of them, and Jak 2, I think, like, when I first played it as a kid, some missions seriously whooped my ass, because Jak 2 can be like that. It's pretty brutal on checkpoints and on health. And So that was a thing, but I played through the whole trilogy, and I think Jak 2 just kind of stuck with me the most, I think, through that difficulty, because I definitely had a period of time where I was really into, like, play the game on hard mode. Now I'm just kind of like, play the game on whatever feels right. But at the time, yeah, it was a challenging game, and it stuck with me through that. And I loved the aesthetic, you know, because, like, the future, the sci-fi, unlocking the jet board, which I was totally, like, unaware of that when I got it in the game, and I'm like, oh, this is sick. So and that was introduced in Jak 2. So like that was just a childhood and teen years kind of favorite of mine. And when I was looking for something new, I think it was in 2018 or 19, I was like, okay, I'll learn Jak 2 any percent, why not? And I learned it, did some runs. They were pretty meh, because obviously I was fresh to the game, you know.
Sure.
You don't start with a great time necessarily. And then I just kind of put it down. We had plans to do like a trifecta with myself, Neo, Donkey Kong Country Runner, and Zumi G, who's just really cool guy in the ASM community. We were each going to do a Jak game at ASM 2019 or 2020, and that just kind of fell through. And I thought, okay, well, I'll shelve this for a bit and come back to it later. And then I did Rack 1, and I was like, okay, let's just do some more Jak 2. I'm feeling Jak 2. And then I just got really into it again, and I forgot how I kind of like remembered how much I loved playing the game. So that's just been like another mainstay. I sort of just bust that out when I'm like, okay, Futurama's kind of been intense lately. Let's just run around on the hoverboard and have some fun. So yeah, no, great game.
And then, of course, this is going to be one of the ones that you are, right? If I remember right, you're doing this at ASM. Is this the other one?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So to bring it full circle, so to speak, from talking about Samurai West here, and of course, Jak 2 is going to be the one that, you know, the other one that you're doing at ASM, which again, hopefully that all goes well. Let's start.
Fingers crossed.
Oh, good.
Oh, and I was just saying, like, fingers crossed the COVID stuff works out. Yeah.
All right. So before we head over to Q&A, I've got some sort of exit questions to wrap up the formal part of the script. One of the things I like to do is get a question from my previous guest for my next guest, and so on. And so my previous guest was Mike Wave, who speedruns Resident Evil, Mass Effect, and had this question from my next guest, which was, what are your thoughts on casual speedrunning versus competitive speedrunning? Is there much of a gap? Where are you on that kind of spectrum, if it exists? Yeah,
that's a good question. Yeah, I think the gap is smaller than people think. First of all, like, I definitely identify with starting casual and then like finding a game that resonates, and I would consider myself a competitive Futurama runner, or at least like high level. And I think like the important thing there, if you're new to running and you want to like get to that level, don't focus on the end result. Focus on how passionate you are about the game, and the rest will come naturally. Because I think like everyone starts out kind of casual, and I think when you start speedrunning, I know I used to be like this. I took it a lot more seriously of like, no, this should be how it's timed, and this should be how it's done, and blah, 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 blah. I don't really mind that anymore. It's just kind of more like easy breezy. So I think like if you're starting out, focus on what's enjoyable to you, and, you know, and make sure you're doing like proper practice, and that competitive nature and that knowledge will come with time. It's a learning experience. I think in terms of where I sit, probably like 2/3 of the way towards competitive, maybe, or like 50-50 is, I know that's a cop out, but like 50-50, like, because there's definitely like, there are games I run where I'm definitely not top level. I'm not like amazing, which is like Jak 2, Rack 1, but I still enjoy them, and I still want to get better and improve. And it's kind of just knowing that that's going to come with time, and when I'm ready to focus and do well. Because that's definitely the experience I had with Futurama, where like started casual, started to get good, started to take it maybe a little too seriously, had an almost burnout, and then just like dialed it back and sort of stabilized. So yeah, I think the gap is smaller than people think, and I think try not to focus too hard on being the competitive top level, right? At least not for me. Like, know your mentality and what works for you.
Yeah, focus on the process and the journey rather than necessarily any sort of specific end result. That does mean that I do need from you a question for my next guest. And I'm not going to tell you who it is right away. They will be a speedrunner. I'm going to give you an extra hint here. They're also Australian.
Oh, okay.
So, but the question doesn't have to be about speedrunning. Could be about music, food, whatever. but a question for the next guest, who will be a speedrunner and is also from Australia.
Okay. Might try to do a speedrunning question. Okay, I think I have one. Okay,
right.
So when you're speedrunning a speed game, you have a favorite trick. It could be a skip or a piece of tech, but everyone's got a favorite thing, right? And in every game you run, there's always like a hypothetical strat or a trick or a skip that everyone kind of wants to figure out or find. And my question is, what's your dream skip, and would you trade in your favorite skip or piece of tech to have that? Would you do it? So like, what are those two things, and would you make the trade? Would be my question.
All right, no, that's a good. I like that. I might steal that for the formal script. As is my custom, I'm going to DM you the name of the next week's guest, who of course I'll reveal on the weekend. Oh wait, it's got.
Wow!
Yeah. So
I love this person's script.
Yes.
That's an awesome guest.
So I'm really excited for that. I think I said their name, half said their name. So whatever. The schedule will go on the weekend. That'll be next Thursday. So everyone look forward to that. That should be a lot of fun. I'm really, really, really happy to have gotten that one. How about future? We're in the middle, almost starting E3 or whatever is left of E3. It's like digital conference season. Are there games that you are looking forward to playing that you're keeping an eye on?
Yeah, there are a couple. There's the big one is called Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, which is by the guys who made Lethal League, and it's kind of just Jet Set Radio. And I love me some Jet Set. So really keen to see how that turns out. It's looking good so far. There are a couple platformers on the horizon. There's one called Demon Turf, which I think has like a demo out right now, and it kind of has like it has that Doom sprite look to the main character, but in 3D environments. It looks really fun. And then a couple other games here and there. There's a port for Ys 9 on PC, which I'm holding off playing Ys 9 until that's on PC. So I hope that's a good. And Neon White is another one, which is like a first-person parkour thing coming out in December, I think, this year. I'm not sure. And the last one is called El Paso Elsewhere, which I don't think that has a release date yet.
Not
that's
yet.
Like a Max Payne type thing. It's got that like low poly Max Payne look going on.
The recently announced Xavier Nelson game. I was speedrunning his game that just came out. An airport for aliens currently run by dogs. So I follow him and I'm aware of what he's up to. That again does look interesting. I agree.
Yeah, so it should be good. Looking forward to it.
How about people in the now? We've already talked. We've mentioned a ton of names of other speedrunners during this interview. Certainly a number of people, in the ASM community. Is there anyone in particular that you would want to shout out, especially people that you feel like deserve more eyeballs than they have right now?
Yeah, I can think of a couple. I hope I don't name like heaps and heaps, but like I always want to support my friends. I think Bacon Man 12. Bacon Man 12 needs more attention on his channel because he's really good at running a variety of games, and he's really good at those games. Bacon Man does Simpsons Hit and Run, I think Sly 3, Futurama, and he's just outstanding at Futurama. I wouldn't be surprised if one day he's at the top of those boards. He's really good at the game. He recently got an OG Xbox as well, so like he's got the optimal hardware and everything, so I really am looking forward to seeing what he does there. But yeah, just a really nice, he's got that chill, like, just small stream kind of vibe where he's chilling, he's having a great time, he's just talking about the game, he's got his people in there, he's chatting, like really nice vibe and really nice like cadence with his viewers. A really cool guy. Other than that, in the Rat community, Mantodia, good friend of mine, he does Ratchet and Clank 2. He's recently been popping off with a Rift Apart playthrough. I think he's still live.
Okay.
That's pretty cool. So he's been having fun with that, and just a really, really awesome dude. Dill Wingo's been here today. I'd shout out Dill Wingo too. Also from Futurama, Mifa has been in chat. I know Mifa's not really Futurama, but close enough. Brothers in arms, right?
Yeah.
Family guy. Yeah. Jack community, probably my Australian friends. There's so many people I could shout out there, but like off the top of my head, Scarletra, Blord Blorden, HS Blue, Wotan. There's more, but like, too many to count. The whole Jack community is awesome. I guess that'd be it. And I guess like from the Australian community, like Raiku's just got a nice stream with Tomba. I always love tuning in late at night and just kind of sitting in. So yeah.
Awesome. No, lots of good people. I mean, obviously some of those people I'm already familiar with. Dill and Mifa have both been on the podcast previously and lots of other good names that you mentioned as well. Where should people be looking for your stuff? What's the right places to go?
Probably just Twitter and Twitch. I keep it simple. I do have a YouTube, but that's just like speedrun VODs. I don't currently use it for anything else. I've toyed with the idea, but for now, just speedrun VODs. So yeah, Twitter and Twitch. Just stylonide on both, same username, so really easy to find.
If you're here with us live, I have put those links into the chat, so go ahead and click on those and follow as needed. If you are listening after the fact on YouTube or Spotify, iTunes, you'll be able to find those links in the show notes. So, of course, still do the same then. stylonide, thank you so much for giving me all this time. It has been a ton of fun.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been great.
I need one more thing from you, which is that I'm going to use a cheesy catchphrase like "Let's boost on out of here." And when I say that, I need you to give me your best rocket engine noise.
Okay, I'm down.
Excellent. Folks, thank you so much for listening. Let's boost on out of here. Good. That was excellent. Very good. Folks, we still got another like 10 minutes or so. If you have any questions that you would want to ask stylonide, please go ahead and throw those in the chat. Albert made two Australian jokes that I feel like are perceptions of Australia. I don't know if those are true. Have you actually had Vegemite? Is that actually a thing?
Oh yeah, Vegemite. It is a thing. I really like it actually.
You like Vegemite? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's very. My wife is really into this YouTube group, and one of her friends is a New Zealander that works and lives full time in Australia, and so when she came to this meetup, she came with a bag of Australian items, and one of them was Vegemite.
Like, Tim Tams would have been
Tim
one.
Tams, yeah, that's
Milo. Yeah. That's awesome.
The other thing that I feel like is the perception is of the allegedly dangerous animals and other critters, including large spiders. I feel like every once in a while some large spider video goes viral. Is that really accurate? Do you encounter big spiders?
Maybe I live in like the suburbs. I live pretty metro. You don't really see much of that here. You can find wildlife like out in bushland around the city and stuff, but like you don't need to worry. It's just like awareness. Like funnel web spiders can be deadly. Just know that they could be around. But it's just being mindful. Like I'm going to be honest. I look at the wildlife in the States and I'm like, bro, you got it way worse. You got like bears. Can I just talk about how terrifying moose are as a concept? That's horrifying.
Moose are huge. Like, they're so big.
Like obviously we have some big spiders and stuff, but like you kind of got to go out of your way or like live out in the sticks for that stuff. Like moose just show up in far North America and Canada, and they're like cryptids. They're just terrifying. Like,
I'll tell you that the spider thing that gets me, like obviously you mentioned the fawn spider is bad. In like the Southwest, they just have black widow spiders everywhere. You know, deadly. And like I visited my friend who lived like in a suburb of LA, and like right outside his apartment door, he's like, "Oh yeah, like there's just a black widow nest there, no big deal." I'm like, "Are you real? Are you serious with this?" Apparently, if you just leave him, I mean, that's what they say. You leave him alone. Like, well, I hope that works out for you.
Yeah.
Mifa is asking, do you have a next cartoon speed game?
Ooh, not at the moment. I've toyed with some. I tried out Family Guy, and like Family Guy's got some cool tricks, but it didn't really like click for me. I kind of put that one down. And I looked at Simpsons Hit and Run, which I actually really like a lot of what's in Shah, but it's just not right for me right now. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but like I'm sure I might find something in the future that could always change and be like, oh yep, here's a weird tie-in from 2005. Let's throw it. Actually, no, I can provide an answer to this. It's an anime speed game. I would like to learn the Cowboy Bebop game for PS2, which is like a 4-hour run.
Okay, yeah, that's supposed to be a pretty good game, right? Have you played that or?
Yeah, It's like solid. I'd say it's a solid game. It's not like crazy, but it's like all in Japanese, and it's just like a 3D brawler. It's,
Right.
But it's busted because it's got this like small frame window to block, kind of like Royal Guard in DMC. If you do it in Cowboy Bebop, it's just an instant kill on like regular mobs.
Okay.
So like hypothetically, I think an optimal speed run would just be like blocking the hell out of everything perfectly, which just sounds fun.
That sounds right. No, that sounds like that fits with the show. Honestly, that's kind of the whole Spike Spiegel's whole deal. I feel like should play Gundam Side Story 0079. Oh yeah, that is funny. There's 16x here. He and I, he's better at it than I am. Have run this Gundam game that's for the Dreamcast. And it is the game that has taught me more city names in Australia than I would have known otherwise. Like, if you told me Alice Springs was a real place, I wouldn't have believed you. But I've since then confirmed that it is, in fact, this place in the middle of Australia where it seems like nothing is.
Yes, that's correct.
And then, of course, there's, I mean, other more famous names. Like, I've heard Adelaide, you know, and stuff like that. Like, that's you know, more common. But
isn't because a friend of mine used to be really into Gundam. Didn't Sydney get like blown up or something in Gundam?
It is a plot point. It is a plot point in Universal Century Gundam, which is like the primary Gundam universe, that the space fascists drop a space colony directly on Sydney. The one that would probably be the best to watch would be Stardust Memories, which takes place like 5 years after the first show and has like very beautiful post-apocalyptic Australia for like the first few episodes.
Nice.
It's actually kind of like a reoccurring meme on the podcast that I do, because Gundam is not the only show where for some reason Australia just gets demolished. It happens in like Gunbuster. There's some other ones I think where it happens. I don't know why. Like, it's actually, we joke about it now. Like, recently we were watching something where like Australia doesn't get blown up, and we were like, this is a change of pace. Like, what a
pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I mean, good news for Australia, I guess. You know, you guys dodged the bullet this time. Instead, it's like Dublin got blown up or something. You know, in Ireland. But that's funny. Any other questions? Usually, my Albert here is a obscure game master, and usually shows up and suggests a weird game, but Albert is currently too enthralled with his own weird game that he discovered. This is great. He discovered that you can pick up, if you pick up an invisibility power-up and finish a level before the power-up runs out, the pickup will persist for the rest of the game.
That's amazing.
Just completely like negates like substantial portions of the game. It's very good. Yeah,
I can understand being distracted by that. That's a pretty cool find.
No, that's really, absolutely. It's just really solid. All right. Well, the other question I'll have for you, since we're rolling up on time, is do you have a potential raid target? Sounds like you might actually have a raid target in mind, but go ahead and take a look at your following list or whatever. Let me know.
I do. I have a few people live. I want to actually chill in the stream, so I'm going to not do Rift Apart because I'm trying to stay like spoiler free.
Okay.
But let me see who's on. We have Delta Doid doing Ratchet and Clank 1. What category is he up to? If it's AGB, I'm going to be really happy. It might be NG+. He's doing NG+. Yeah, I reckon Delta Doid. I'll link you his channel. Right there.
Excellent. All right, Mifa had a question. What do you think is the best place? If you told someone visiting Australia to visit a particular city, what would your advice be?
I think if you're going for like the tourist kind of vibe, and you just want to see a bunch of places and get really involved, like there's Sydney, and Sydney does have a lot of like landmarks and places to sightsee. It's pretty cool. I think Melbourne is like a really popular city right now, and there's just like a lot to explore. I think it's got more like meat to it if you're there as a tourist, because I go there as a tourist a lot myself. Just domestically, and it's just a really cool space to explore. Lots of like places to go, things to try. So like I'd say Melbourne, and of course the obvious one, Sydney. They're both pretty good to check out. Yeah.
Cool. Now I know my spouse once I think visited Australia like years ago, like maybe a decade ago. And once in a while, she talks about going back, and so I'm like, all right, well, I guess I should take notes. Like, might as well. She does all the travel planning anyway. All right,
nice.
So we've wrapped up about on the end of things here. Let me go ahead and cue this up. Seems like Delta's in the. Oh yeah, just mashing them resets, reset and clank.
Getting those Veldens going.
Yeah, let me cue that up. So I don't know how many people. This is always a mystery to me because so many of the viewers right now are front page embed viewers. So we'll see how many go over in the raid here. But anyway, let me get you on your way. Thank you so much again for giving me this time. Hopefully we'll run into each other again in the future in some capacity. Yeah,
here's to it. It's been great.
Excellent. Take care. Have a good night or morning, night. I don't know what you say.
Afternoon. 12:01. 12:01
Afternoon.
Right now.
Have a great afternoon. I'll see you later. Take care.
Thanks, man. We'll catch you around.